Hi there, pardon my cold sniffly voice, but we're going to go over how to create your own custom shapes. That's this little thing right here in Photoshop and to be able to use them. So like you could use them to watermark pictures like I've done here. So here's my shape. It's on its own layer with an opacity turned down. It's got my initial and a little embellishment around the edges. So let's talk about how to create that and in a way that it will become a shape that's on your shapes list. So then all you have to do is choose it and then click and drag and draw it. And then it's there. And then you, of course, can modify your opacity or whatever. So the first process is to just create a square. I do a 500 pixel by 500 pixel square and then put your letter on it or whatever it is that you want to create to make that happen. What you're going to have to do if you're going to use shapes like dingbat font shapes is you can't really draw two text boxes on top of each other. Because if I try to draw another text box, I'm going to keep clicking in this letter. Also, if you lock it, it still thinks you want to click in that letter, and it will like kind of yell at you, and this little error will pop up because it says, hey, it's locked. Why are you trying to click in there? So that's really, really confusing for people. So what I suggest is draw the first letter and turn it off. Then click again to draw your second letter. So I'm going to use a font that has symbols. The one that we're using in class is called Laurus Nobilis. So, and there's different letters in this font. They all do different things, you can see. So you would choose whichever one you want. And since we're just using it essentially as a shape, instead of changing the font size, I'm just going to press Control-T, hold Shift, and transform this so that it fits as big as possible on my canvas and hit Enter. Then you can turn on your other one, click on that layer, Control-T, and get it positioned like you want. All right, so that's pretty much that situation. Once you get them all selected, and you do need these to be in black. If you've ever noticed when you look at the shapes up here, they're going to be in white. They flip-flop the colors. So you do want it to be in a solid color. All right, so once you get that on there, you're going to select both layers by clicking in the gray space, hold Control, click again. If you had more layers, because you could add more things, that's fine. Just collect all the layers. Control-click on the gray part to select all those layers. Then we're going to turn all the layers collectively into a smart object. This is just the easiest way to do it. There's, by the way, a million ways to do this. But so they're all in one layer, I'm going to do Convert to Smart Object. So now this is an object. Now be careful. If you double click on a smart object, you get inside the smart object and like your layers go back to T's. See, it says PSB. That's in a smart object. I'm just going to close it out and I'm back in here. So don't double click on there. Okay. Now that they're on a single layer, hold down your control key on your keyboard and click right here on the thumbnail. That's the little box. What that does is puts the marching ants on there. So now you have the selection. Once you have the selection, go to your Paths panel, which should be docked in here with your Layers panel, and then come down and click on this little button down here. This is going to create a work path. And that's that blue outlined thing that you get when you have shapes turned on. Over here it says work path. Once you have a work path and it is clicked on and you're good to go, you're ready to save the shape by going to Edit, Define Custom Shape, and then I could call it T wreath or whatever. Once you do that, technically you can get rid of this layer because you don't need it anymore. Now it's confusing because this path might stay behind. If you click off of a path, you can make it go away, or you can even drag the path to the trash can. So now I have a completely blank document. So if I go to my custom shape and click on my down arrow, my new shape should be there. And all I have to do is double click it, pick a color, and then come down here, hold Shift if you don't want it to stretch, and drag it. And I can use it on anything. And of course, it's its own layer. I can Control-T and rotate it around, modify the opacity, add layer styles, or do whatever I want to it once I get it in there. Okay, so that's just the basics of it. For my class, you're going to create two versions. One that is your initial first letter with this actual font that I used here. I like this little font because Laurus Nobilis sounds cool, and it's a bunch of these wreaths. So we downloaded that from dafont.com. And then I'm going to challenge you to go find some other font in the Dingbat fonts. The shapes ones are probably where you're going to find most of them, but you can look around and use anything, really. Like Spring Romance has some. I'll tell you, those skinny ones are kind of a problem. The thicker they are, the better it's going to be. You know, you can find a font that looks more like a paintbrush and then use like these little ones in there to decorate it so it looks kind of painty. Or same thing, here's some paint splatters. Just know that when you turn some of these, if it has teeny tiny pieces, when you turn those into a path, you may lose parts of them. So you really don't want it to be tiny. Tiny pieces are a problem. So try to keep with things that are somewhat big. I mean, if you've ever noticed, shapes tend to be rather big. And that's pretty much it. Pretty easy stuff. So enjoy creating two versions, one that's your letter with the wreath, one that's your first and last initial with something that's not a wreath. And again, you can use multiple things if you want to make that one cool. Once you have got all of yours created, we're going to create your own shape library. So let's go one step further to show you how to do that. When you have your shapes pulled up and you click the drop down arrow and the gear, you can go in here to the preset manager. So let's say I have these 3 T's and I want to make them a set. Well, click and then hold Control and click and hold Control and click. And now I can choose these 3 and I can save them as a set. And then I can say the T set. And then I can save that out there to wherever. And I could email this to someone or whatever, and they could load that into there. So when I hit done, let's say I'll just go and pick a different one so you can tell. I'll go to animals or whatever. Now you won't see these anymore. They're going to disappear. I'm going to say no. All right, so here's my animals. And now if I load, and I go and load the T set, there they are. And there's my T's. So if you sent it to somebody, all they'd have to do is load it up. They need to save it, you know, to their computer someplace. Load it up, and then they would have access to them. So there you go. You could create shapes of just about anything. Good luck.